Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sarina Fazan. Favorite day of the week, Wednesday at noon. We are streaming live from CP Communications and Red House Streaming, and we are getting ready to go on the record. What an exciting show today, because Hollywood comes to St. Petersburg, Florida. We are interviewing today feature film director, writer, producer, and actor Scott Wiper, who's joining us right now. Hi, Scott. How are you? But you're actually not in Hollywood.
No, I'm in northern Michigan, so I wish I had. Actually, I'm very happy to be here, and happy to be on the record with you.
Well, okay,
But
so tell us why you're in. So you're in. I'm sorry, I've been on the wrong camera the whole time, but this is why I love.
it's all right.
This is why I love live TV. I mean, or
Yeah,
live streaming, or it's like it's awesome. So tell us. All right, so I gave a brief list of your credentials, but why are you in Michigan?
So this cabin you see behind me is this is a family cabin that I've come up to since really I was born. So this is up in the town's called Anekama, Michigan, and so it was that time of year to escape to the wilderness and see old friends.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so it turns out when we set August 11th, it was like, well, okay, that'll work. I just gotta make sure we have internet.
Well, you definitely have
and
to
we do, and we do.
Those areas I always think are great to like reset your, creative mind to, for me anyway, like when I'm, out in nature and out in the woods, I can,
Well,
reset my mind.
the key to Hollywood is getting out of Hollywood as much as possible.
Well, gosh, I really want to talk about that. But tell us, I just gave a brief highlight of you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I was born and raised in the Midwest in Ohio, right when always loved sports and football, basketball, baseball. But when video cameras came out in about mid-'80s, I was obsessed with them. I think a neighbor had one, and I would borrow it, and just started making movies. 2 VCRs together and edit. We'd use football pads and dress up like Mad Max, and just that. From right then, I wanted to find a school where I could study cinema, and I went to Wesleyan University. I also studied in Paris, France, at a film program there for my sophomore year. Went back and worked for a production company based in Paris, all around Europe. And really, I read a lot of I looked at a lot of we were going into the 90s, and there were many waves of independent filmmaking. There was the Nouvelle Vague in the 60s, but there was a big one in America in the 90s. And with Steven Soderbergh, Spike Lee, Whit Stillman. And I would just gather these books that they'd put out and read.
I lost. Yeah, I know. We're losing him right now. Hopefully we can reconnect to the feed. Again, I was talking about live television or live streaming, and this is the type of thing that happens. Oh, here we are. Okay, Scott is back. Yeah, we're back. Yay!
Where'd you lose me?
You know what I was doing? I was putting on my news anchor hat and filling in the time until we got you back. But that's this is why we love what we do.
It's fantastic. Right? Yeah. Where'd you lose me? I'll pick right up.
Okay, so you were talking about how we just born in the Midwest, and how much your passion, you loved this career, and then I didn't
come from an arts. When I finally got to Wesleyan University, a lot of fellow students had come from artsy families. Mine was a fairly traditional Midwest family. You played sports, but the coming of the video camera just got me fascinated with filmmaking, and as well as just I think as a teenager, I think I loved Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, 48 Hours. I didn't have access to necessarily art films like if you were raised in Manhattan or San Francisco. So, and then I pursued it from, really went in my guidance counselor's office when they said the pamphlets and started looking for schools where you could study film.
So let me ask you, Scott, like, of course, this is live, and you and I talked prior to the show, and I'm like, oh, here's what we're going to do. But of course, I'm going to switch it around, and I'm going to talk about your project a little bit later. But so actors, producers, writers like yourself, honestly, it's only like 1% to 2%, right, of the entire population ever reach the point to where you are. So how hard was it to break into the business in the first place? And how did you do it?
It's funny. I mentioned sports. I often think highly competitive sports are good training for everyone in Hollywood, because eventually someone tells you in the early years 90% will fail, and I think you have to be someone who kind of likes those odds. And I also don't agree with the term fail, because those that really, really love what they do creatively, if you're doing it. But I'm lucky that I've been able to make a very good living in show business, and I think what it is a grind, and there's a myth that you hit this point and you kick back, whereas every time you finish a movie, you feel like you're right back where you started to get the next one made, and as well as every time you sit down to write a new script, page one can be sometimes as torturous as the first time you wrote page one.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you're saying that no matter what, you come off of a successful movie, you come off of a successful project, you feel like you are starting all over again when you start, and it's just as competitive? Or do you feel like once you're in, though, like with television and TV news, I can tell you that we would always say, like, once you're in, you're in. Now, you may not be able to stay in the market, that you worked in. You may have to move and go to another market. But once you've established some of that credibility, you could move around. Would you say that's the same in Hollywood?
I think if you're, I always, when asked about the various roles in filmmaking, directing versus writing for others or acting, I always said, like, I'd like to drive the bus, not ride on it. And that's just a personal choice that I like. I like thinking of something and executing it from A to Z. And that's filmmaking, which includes raising the money and putting all the deals together, casting. But there is sometimes when people who've done well in Hollywood lose their mojo, or they get down. A lot of it is, yes, you could just take the jobs that come, and that was the hardest thing for me. I think in my really at age 32, I turned down a job and to direct something, and I think that was a loss of innocence, a coming of age, where you spent the last 12 years just work, and then you have to control. You have to hone your career, and it's the power of saying no. And so, yes, you could just take certain jobs, but do they move you? And so I think the Big Ugly really was something where Vinnie Jones and I wanted to make something that was exactly what was in our guts, in our heart.
Well, speaking of The Big Ugly, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's your latest project, and it was released during the height of COVID. Why don't we go to the trailer so people have an idea about the movie? So we'll go to the trailer
Fantastic.
first. Okay.
God, land, oil. It's often said war is waged over just these three. I didn't come here to West Virginia for God. Back in London, Harris is the top man. But here, deep in the hills of Appalachia, Harris has a mate, an oil man, Preston.
Look at you.
So here we are, invested in an oil operation. Preston needs cash flow. Harris needs a cleaner.
I got a loan.
I'm an oil man.
There's so much more. I love you.
Fiona, she's missing.
I need you in London.
I'm not leaving till I find her. Fiona's dead.
She was sitting right there with Preston's boy.
The oil boys.
Yeah, what are you doing here?
Nasty scratch you got there.
Oh, you know, got a little bit of a dust up.
You're looking for answers. Don't do it. Think of the money. Thousands of dollars without breaking a sweat. A new life.
I don't want a new life.
Getting on the bad side of Preston doesn't make life easier.
It's a situation that needs finesse.
If I can't stop a beast like him, then what's my purpose? He ain't gonna go lightly.
I guess we're at odds then.
Retribution.
Retribution.
I didn't come here to West Virginia for God.
Scott, I know that this project is so close to the heart to you, but it was released, as we talked about, at the height, of COVID, 2020. And what was that like for you? And why are you so passionate about this project?
Well, the decision, we originally talked about releasing it at the end of July last summer, and there were many discussions because there's a lot of people involved, the distributors, the many producers, and I think the $200 million films, or maybe with marketing some are $400 million, it's hard to tell, they were pushing. And even though our budget is millions and millions of dollars, it's not, we didn't have to fill every theater in America. And so we thought we were a small enough film. Again, the term independent film has changed, right? We thought doing all drive-ins and some theaters was something we could pull off safely. And another movie did it called The Rental. And so it was a double feature. We also had, I think, a double feature with the Gentleman, the Guy Ritchie film. So it worked out, and I think there's one side that when this is our family, Vinnie Jones, Mike Downey, our investors. We're not a corporate. I mean, we are a corporation, but we're a small family. So if a big studio decides to delay Top Gun 2, everyone can kind of go on with their lives until they're ready. We were all burning on adrenaline, and the concept of pushing and waiting would have been torturous. But if we thought, we thought we could do it in a responsible way, and we kind of made ads that just said the Great American Drive-In is back, and that's actually how a lot of people saw the movie.
Wow.
In their car. Even that's how I went to instead of going to London for the premiere party, I drove out in the middle of nowhere in farmland and watched it at a drive-in on opening night, which was pretty cool.
I know. I was going to say.
Because it was a change. You're used to seeing you have all the fancy parties, and as it was just beginning, I just took I lit a cigar and walked around in farmland, walked around the Barberton drive-in, And I saw these teenage kids in the back, like putting their station wagon backwards, and they had the stereo on, and they were, getting ready to party. Well, and I wanted to, no, you've got to turn your music down and pay attention to the dialogue. And then I realized, well, this is what drive-ins are. And then my car was right in the front row, and I had this older couple in their pickup truck backwards with lounge chairs in back, and they sat and listened to the whole thing, and the sound was great. So it was an experience I'd never had before, releasing a movie across the nation, where my premiere was wandering around a drive-in, trying to not tell people to turn their music down.
Isn't that something? Well, I have a lot of questions about that. So we're going to go to a break right now, and when we come back, we'll talk more about it, the experience, and also what it took to make the movie. So we'll be right back, Scott. I'm Sarina Fazan, a journalist, producer, and podcast host. With a background in television news, I know how much time and talent it takes to produce a broadcast quality production. But no more. Red House Streaming offers a simple, cost-effective method for capturing live action and streaming it in real time to YouTube, Facebook, or any other website. From single camera shoots or multi-camera productions, conventional or virtual sets, and from the state-of-the-art Red House Streaming Studios to remote locations, the professional crew at Red House Streaming, backed by the technology and reputation of CP Communications, allows you to produce more content at a lower cost and with little to no engineering required. That's why my podcast, On the Record with Sarina Fazan, is streamed live from the Red House Streaming Studios each week. Contact Red House Streaming today at 800-762-4254 or online at cpcoms.com to learn more. I'll see you in the studio. Welcome back to On the Record. Scott Wiper is joining us from a cabin in Michigan, but it's really Hollywood, comes to St. Petersburg. Scott, we were just talking about your latest movie, The Big Ugly, and we saw the trailer, amazing. And you said you released it at a drive-in because it was released in 2020. Now, when did you make the movie, though? When and how long did the process take? And did COVID affect the making of the movie?
Not at all. We were all done basically, and this is, in the summer of 2017, so this goes back, I had the idea to, there was an existing script set in Texas, and then I had the idea to do it in Appalachia, and I convinced Vinnie Jones, who's a Londoner, to come see. I was like, how about it has an oil theme, so instead of Texas, let's do West Virginia, because there's, believe it or not, an oil industry there. He said he was at West Virginia because he's from London, so he's like, is in John Denver and Deliverance? I said yes, and he's like, that's it. The dichotomy of those beauty and kind of scary, and we went, and the journey, and I kind of wanted to, my family was out there, and I kind of was I was always looking for things where I can keep working, but maybe spend some time back where my family is. So there was and on that journey, Vinny and I were driving around, we found the seed money we're very, we love our business, but we also are very passionate. And we got invited up to Michigan, to Detroit, where we met the financiers over cigars and drinks. And then 6 weeks later from him coming out, we had the initial millions.
Wow. Well, can people, so to finance a movie though, and say, you don't really have a lot of, how do you get the credibility in the first place to get the financing for the movie if you really don't have that huge of a background?
In a way, there's part of it is providence takes place. Jump off the cliff. Martin Luther King says, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the entire staircase. So it's just, that is movie making. Like, whether you're writing a script or trying to get a movie financed, you just have to have some form of faith, because you could map it all out and it's never going to happen like you predicted. but as far as credibility, it begins. There's I made 5-minute films. You make, and I'm speaking for all my buddies, men and women who are filmmakers. You make 5-minute films, half-hour films, then you make your first feature-length film, and then you make that for 150,000, and then you get a couple famous actors, so you have to be union, and then that's 2 million, and then I got hired to do The Condemned, which is like 25 million. So you just, and then I went down and did The Marine, and that was 4 million. So it's not that you always have to go up in budget. It's that you just keep making movies. And I'm a little, I'm always a little shocked when I run into old friends. They're like, "Oh, you made it," and I'm like, I still feel exactly like I was when I was 25, just hustling. I'm a working man's filmmaker, and I got to be doing even on this. We're still wrapping up things, but it's just you're just hustling, and but it's not just with the money; it's with the casting, because and those are interlinked, and that goes back to the days of Fred Astaire, Humphrey Bogart, Robert Mitchum. You can't. Stars are important in the way the financing works. So, and stars, I try to write characters that might. I know that I can't compete with, when I sit down to write, with what the studio films are making, and they're very good at what they do with the Avengers and Wonder Woman. And my goal has always been to. There was a kind of movie I loved in the '70s that was had some pathos, some heart and soul, some grit, and that it kind of explores the human psyche, the human condition, conflict, and I'm not doing that to be. I'm kind of, half of my brain is doing that because I'm around enough actors that's what they're looking for. If they're bored by doing a $200 million special effects movie, and even with The Big Ugly, I really tried to make it a piece of theater. And if I'd had another week of filming, I would have put in more action. But I felt, well, there's tons of action in A Better Way to Die, in The Condemned, and I kind of, and even I have good friends. It's like, I could use a little more action, But this personal goal for Vinny and for me was to make this about the characters and the actors.
Well, okay. So speaking of that, what is it like though in Hollywood right now? And when you were talking about casting and trying to get the right people in, has Hollywood basically shut down?
No, I think it's a lot easier for Netflix, for Amazon, for hit shows that have proven to be hit TV shows, because they're so the show must go on, as they say. So I think it's a little trickier for those that don't have the ability to go above or below their budget by 25%, because you don't know what you're going to get hit with restrictions and regulations. But it's not, it's not shut down, but we'll see.
Very interesting, though. And when you were talking about the type of movies right now, it's really close to me, actually, because we've been working with filmmakers on stories that I've done in the past, and they have said people right now are craving movies on faith, like faith-based movies or inspirational movies or something to take. Do you believe that? I mean, do you believe the shift is changing? You mentioned it a tiny bit about the action movies, but do you feel that the shift is changing on what people want to consume right now?
I do. I think it was interesting. There was a line in The Big Ugly where Ron Perlman asked Nick Braun. They're just wondering about the issues of morality and will we be judged? And he says, "Are you a man of God?" And Nick Braun says, "I try to be. How about you?" Ron Perlman. And it gets in that discussion, and that's men and women, asking that question. That goes back, centuries ago in philosophy. But it was funny that even that discussion, I can't tell you how many people suggested I cut it.
Wow.
And it was just because the big ugly is definitely individuals who operate on the edge of the spectrum of morality. It's a film noir, but I've always loved that. But since that was 2.5 years ago, and I said no, this question is part of, the big ugly is kind of set in a landscape that I saw as either hellish or purgatory, and you have these characters trying to escape to the paradiso. But so it's always something that's fascinated me, and I 100% believe there was a period, there was a lot of things with Vinny and I produced the movie together. He starred in it, I directed it. We were always talking about the script. There was a darkness for us both during that period. He'd lost his wife.
Oh, so sorry.
I'd lost my mother and father. And
sorry.
so I think inevitably, when you are making something without a lot of other influences, there's a darkness to it. And the big ugly gets to light. Even in a fun adventure movie, you inevitably put in kind of what is going through your lives. And we were just talking last week that now we go to the light. And that's the fun thing about films. They're a time capsule. So there's a darkness to the big ugly, but it's also, I wouldn't say it's only personal for those of us who made it. I also felt there was a darkness in society.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So speaking of the big ugly, before I turn it back to you in the last 5 minutes of the show, the big ugly right now, people can view it on Hulu, Amazon, right, Scott? Because it's not in the theaters anymore.
It went in November. It went to Hulu, and then Hulu has it for 2 years. So if you subscribe to Hulu, you can watch The Big Ugly for free, and then it's at all your usual not Netflix, Hulu,
Amazon,
iTunes, Amazon. Yeah.
Well, we
If you go
definitely.
to IMDb, what's that?
I was going to say, we definitely encourage, I mean, you've been on the show, we definitely encourage people to go and, and watch the movie for sure, for sure.
It's better for me if you go somewhere, you don't go to Hulu, you go to iTunes and buy it, Amazon. But it's, even if you go to imdb.com, that nowadays that lists all the places where you can watch it. But it seems like the easiest ones, if you don't have Hulu, are Amazon and iTunes. And it's also like if you have Spectrum or your cable providers, it's on pay-per-view.
Got it. So I want to circle back to you, though, in the last few minutes of the show, because we talked about everything you do, right? A feature film director, writer, producer, and actor. So out of all those, though, what about acting? So acting is not your absolute favorite? You like being the creator and producing and writing?
Yeah, I'm nervous to be on camera right now. I became... I had to prepare for this.
Well,
I got used to behind the camera. Yet I had a professor, and she made every directing student act in their own short film, and I think it's a very good lesson. And I was able to. I had some acting jobs, and I learned a lot. And I also learned. It's one of those things people think, oh, that can't be that hard. But I was in Pearl Harbor, and just when there's $200 million at stake and 250 crew people standing around, the Navy's putting the jets over, and you see Alec Baldwin or Ben Affleck or Tom Sizemore just nail it, you kind of have this moment where you're like, these guys are pros.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I was like, this is, so that, but I think that understanding that when you come across, it really is, it's a skill that is, as I said, it's easy. Everyone can throw a perfect spiral in their backyard playing football. Can you throw it when everything's on the line and there's 80,000 people watching live and another 40 million watching on television? And that's the Tom Brady instinct. And like you see people like Vinny and Ron Perlman, Malcolm McDowell, those are pros.
Well,
So
we certainly appreciate the Tom Brady mention too, since we are here in Florida. But I was laughing because today, I'm going back to when you said, I'm uncomfortable being on camera right now. I'm so appreciative because the general manager of the studio is actually directing the show, because the director called out sick, and we certainly hope Jason is feeling better. But Lowell Beckner is actually directing the show, and he said we need to have Scott smile a little bit more. Because we did sense that. That's so funny that you said that, I'm nervous about being on camera now. I think that's actually very comforting to a lot of people, aspiring actors and people in the
Well, I
industry.
think actually live. I was like, live? Do we have to do it live? We can't edit?
Yeah, I thrive on live.
Did I smile?
No, you're fabulous. No, you're fabulous. No, absolutely. I just had to point that out because I think it's so inspirational, right? And where you are at, you really are inspiring people to show that you can achieve all of this, and you can still maybe you get out of your comfort zone a little bit, like you said. Like you're like, live, really live. I think I do better in live situations than tape situations, quite frankly. Even when things get go awry. But okay, we have to give a shout out to John Hughes, who lives here in Florida, knows you from years ago, and connected us
John Hughes.
to put you on the show.
John Hughes.
Yeah, so
Viper, you gotta get on the show.
He is a good friend here in Florida, and I have to say, what I so appreciate about the show is that we ask people who would they like to see on the show. So they give us suggestions, and then we reach out. And so, Scott, we so appreciate you coming on. In closing, do you have some, and I love the Martin Luther King quote, that was fantastic, but for people out there that are watching that want to do what you do, and they're like, gosh, how much longer do I have to keep on trying to do this? What words of encouragement would you have for them?
Begin. There's a handful of jobs in show business, like directing, acting, screenwriting, producing, that there's no path. It's not like you do these other jobs and it leads to this. You just you start with any budget, and you jump off the cliff, and it comes with all the normal terrifying qualities. But the other one is there are no white knights. There's something that's, at least as a Midwesterner, you have this image. That you go out to Hollywood and you've made a short film or you've written a script, and then Mr. Big, Mrs. Big sees it and they said, "Kid, we're gonna make you the next Steven Spielberg." And yes, that might happen 1 out of 1,000 times, but I always say there are no white knights. You're your own white knight. And I'm not particularly fond of producing, in the sense of it's a lot of work with accounting and numbers and administration, but you quite often, many filmmakers, writer directors produce because there are no white knights. And eventually there are, in the sense of friendships, but they're your equals. So you're each other's white knights. Like the team we've put together now are financiers in Detroit, and Vinny and Mike Downey. We are it's the Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid concept, which is the best thing you can have is a great producing team, and you're part of that wheel.
Well, Scott Wiper, we certainly appreciate you joining us on the show. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom, and we hope one day you can actually come into our studios.
That'd be wonderful, and we can bring John Hughes with us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just sit off to the side.
Absolutely. He'd be so much fun to have on. And to the viewers out there, you can share this video and podcast. I'm on multiple platforms. I love when we show the graphic because I always get so surprised that I'm on so many. And actually, there's more than that we need to add in, but I don't want to tell the guys that yet. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, everyone. We so appreciate it. And stay safe out there. We'll see you next Wednesday.